Welcome to marking tips from Biology Paper 2 KCSE. Biology Paper 2 is divided into two sections, Section A and Section B. In Section A, you get 40 marks, where you have questions 1 to 5, and the questions are experimental questions. So you must be equipped with the practical techniques. You must have done all the practicals from Form 1 to Form 4 without skipping any. Section B is 40 marks, and Section B has 3 questions. The first question is question number 6, and it is a compulsory data-based question. So you are given data, you answer questions from that data. There is already a video on data questions, and I've given the data questions from 2001 to 2015, because 2016 was a data question repeated of 2009. So some of these questions are repeated, and that is why I'm inviting you to watch my videos. Question 7 and 8 are essay questions, and you only choose one, or essay questions where only one is to be selected. That is the way Paper 2 is organized. Note, for you to be able to do Paper 2 properly, you have to cover the KIE syllabus. Make use of the NEC syllabus. Make use of the past KCSE questions. A question on genetics is always set. Graphical work is always tested. My next video in biology will be maybe a question on genetics to show you, because it is always there. Or if you have one, please put it down in my comments so that I can give it to you. So, paper 2, apart from the experimental questions, is now where you have the data-based question, which is normally involves graph work. Although not always, sometimes you are given just data in a table, but mostly you are given graph work. So let's look at the graph work. The key areas is axis, X and Y axis must be labeled with units indicated if any, e.g. axis time in hours. So you have to indicate the units. You should know that the x-axis is the independent variable. Reason out which variable depends on the other for you to know which variable is going to be going to the x-axis. So the variable which depends on which is independent will go to x-axis. The dependent variable will go to the y-axis. A against B. Draw a graph of A against B means first to be on y-axis, A second on the x-axis. So A against B. So A goes to the y-axis, B goes to the x-axis. Note, the first, this against this. The first goes to the y-axis, the second one goes to the x-axis. Scale. Space occupied by the numbers 3/4 or more than a half of the space provided. All the data must be covered. Scale must capture all the data. Origin must be indicated, starting point. If the origin is missing, you are penalized. Wrong scale. You won't get plotting marks, and you won't get marks for the curves. You can only get the identification mark and labeling. If one scale is not correctly plotted, plotting is not marked. Do as many graph questions as possible because you know this is a compulsory area. Plotting. Use pencil to plot and never use ink. All data must be captured. If a point misses, no marks for plotting. Avoid dots and circles to plot. Joining dots or circles is difficult, so always mark a point with an X or a cross. Use a cross to plot because the line passes through the intersection of the lines or the cross. So you can see the difference between dots and X. For the X, the line, you know where it is going to pass through. But for the dots, it's not easy. You can always make a mistake. Drawing the curve. Join all the points freehand. Draw smooth curve which is neat, thin, and continuous. Extrapolation or extending above two small squares is not allowed. You lose marks for the curve and plotting. So you should not extend the curve more than two small squares. When drawing two curves, identify them. Give their identity because it is marked. Note, when the axes are interchanged, you score 0. Headings or titles do not score. The scale gives the go-ahead to mark points. The mark for identity is independent. So even if the curve is wrong, you get the identity mark. Title is not necessary because it is implied in the question. But anyway, for a clever student, you are not supposed to leave the title. You look more organized with the title. Questions on genetics. Because we said it is compulsory. Always try to understand the question. You should not cram questions in genetics because you cannot cram crosses. I will show you the examples. Types of questions set in genetics are a question on can be of complete dominance, or the question can be for condominant, or the question can also be a question on sex linkage. If the genetic cross is missing, no score is awarded to this question. Precaution to be taken for genetic crosses. Always use the letters given in the question, otherwise you lose marks for genotype. If you use other letters, you have set a different question. Write the headings in the genetic cross. Okay, writing the headings in the genetic cross is not necessary from 2015. The cross must be a capital X. Gametes must be circled with solid circles. I'll give you the examples. Incomplete circles for genetics are penalized by missing the mark for gametes. Symbols for male and female must be shown. Like you see the symbol for, this is the symbol for male, and this is the symbol for female. Fission lines should not penetrate the gametes. Should join with a perfect V. Should not hang. Should meet at F1. If the above is not observed, you lose mark for fusion. Always identify the F1 generation. Write X and Y chromosome fuses, not XY chromosomes, not XY chromosome fuses. You have to write X and Y. The one hand should be there. S equations. There are two types of S's in biology. There is one which is a specific equation, where you are told to state 2 or nakadhalika, 2 or 3. And there is another one which is open question, where you are not limited. As many marks as possible. Write as much as possible. Spelling mistakes are allowed. They are just underlined. When the instruction is name, the spelling of the words must be correct. Names of taxonomic units must be spelled correctly. All taxons must start with a capital letter. If the questions are tied, A must be corrected to score B. Hormones will not convert, do, carry out, but they stimulate. So hormones do not do anything, they just stimulate. Bones articulate, but do not join. Don't talk about bones joining. The femur and the fibula. You say that they are joining. You say they articulate. Avoid abbreviations as much as possible. Root hairs absorb dissolved mineral salts or water and mineral ions. Olecranon process, not olecranon alone. You are supposed to write the word process. There are two types of questions. Adaptation questions, where you write continuously without numbering because the point might be completed later. For example, how is the mammalian heart adapted to perform its functions? Or it can be process question, where you start from a specific point and ends at a particular point. For example, a process of inhalation or the role of hormones in menstrual cycle. These are processes, and they start from a specific point. Note, avoid process questions in the essays, because there are 3 questions, you select one. Process questions are tricky, so please avoid them unless you are sure you are good at it or you have practiced enough. For cell physiology, comparison of concentration first, then mentioned by osmosis from cell to cell, hypertonic and hypotonic and hypertonic. Equations. Avoid chemical equations. Use light word equations. Calculation in biology always starts with a formula.